The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky surface of Kepler 442b. 12 human children walked in a neat line behind their teacher, Mrs. Han Su-bin. They were heading to the old mining tunnels for their weekly field trip. The children chattered excitedly about the rock formations they would see. Hyun-woo held his little sister So-young's hand as they walked. At 12 years old, he was the oldest in the group and felt responsible for keeping everyone safe. So-young was only 8, but she was braver than most kids her age. She pointed at strange blue crystals growing from the tunnel walls. "Look, brother. They sparkle like stars," So-young said with wonder. Behind them, Jin-ho kicked at loose stones on the path. The 14-year-old was more interested in how the mining equipment worked than the pretty rocks. His father worked in the main mining facility, and Jin-ho dreamed of becoming an engineer like him someday. Little Na-ri, only 6 years old, walked quietly at the back of the group. She had big, curious eyes that noticed everything around her. While the other children talked loudly, she listened to the strange sounds echoing from deep inside the tunnels. Mrs. Han stopped the group near a large opening in the rock wall. "This tunnel goes down 300 meters, she explained. "The miners found rare metals here before they moved to the deeper shafts." The children gathered around, asking questions about the mining process. Jin-ho raised his hand. "How do they get the heavy equipment down there?" "They use special lifts," and Mrs. Han's words were cut short by a strange humming sound from above. Everyone looked up at the sky. Dark shapes moved between the clouds. The shapes were too big to be the regular transport ships that visited their colony. These were different. They had a sleek, alien design that none of the humans had ever seen before. "What are those?" whispered Na-ri, tugging on Mrs. Han's sleeve. Mrs. Han felt a cold fear in her stomach. The colony had protocols for unknown ships. All civilians were supposed to return to the settlement immediately. "Children, we need to go back right now," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. But it was too late. Bright beams of light shot down from the alien ships. The beams surrounded the entire group, creating a glowing cage around them. Mrs. Han pushed the children behind her, but there was nowhere to run. "Stay together," she shouted. The alien ships landed with a soft whirring sound. Doors opened on the sides of the vessels, and creatures stepped out. They were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like metal. Their faces had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern, and their mouths were just thin slits. They wore dark uniforms with strange symbols. Commander Thexfall of the Vorthic Empire stepped forward. His scanner had already identified the species. Humans, primitive technology level. No significant military presence detected on this world. Perfect for specimen collection. "Secure the young ones," Thexfall ordered his soldiers in the clicking Vorthic language. "Leave the adult for questioning." The Vorthic soldiers moved forward with devices that looked like nets made of energy. Mrs. Han stepped in front of the children, spreading her arms wide to protect them. "Please, they're just children," she pleaded, not knowing if the aliens could understand her words. Thexfall tilted his head, studying the human female. Her behavior was interesting. Most species they encountered simply ran when faced with superior technology. This one was trying to protect the smaller ones instead of herself. "The adult shows protective instincts," he noted to his second-in-command. "Make a record of this behavior for the research files." Hyun-woo squeezed So-young's hand tighter. His heart was beating fast, but he tried to think clearly. These aliens wanted to take them somewhere. He had heard stories from the adult colonists about other worlds where bad things happened to people who were taken by unknown ships. "Listen to me," Hyun-woo whispered to the other children without moving his lips much. "Stay close together. Don't fight them yet. Wait for a chance." Jin-ho nodded slightly. He understood what Haiyan Wu meant. Fighting now would be useless, but maybe later they could find a way to escape. The energy nets fell over the children. The nets didn't hurt, but they made it impossible to move away from each other. Mrs. Han tried to grab the nets with her hands, but they passed right through. Her fingers like they weren't really there. "No, take me instead. Leave the children here." Mrs. Han cried. Dexful made a gesture with his hand. One of his soldiers pointed a device at Mrs. Han. A blue beam hit her, and she fell to the ground, unconscious but breathing. The adult will be collected later if needed, Dexval decided. Transport the specimens to Research Ship 7. The Vorthic soldiers guided the trapped children toward their ships. Haiyan Wu looked back at Mrs. Han lying on the rocky ground. He wanted to help her, but the energy net kept him moving forward with the group. So Young started to cry quietly. "I want to go home," she whispered. "We will go home," Haiyan Wu promised her. "But first we need to be smart and brave." Nari walked silently, but her sharp eyes watched everything the aliens did. She noticed how they operated their devices and the sounds their language made. Even at 6 years old, she was learning. Jing Ho studied the alien technology as they were loaded into the ship. The energy nets, the floating platforms, the way the ship doors opened without any visible controls. His father had taught him that understanding how things work was the first step to fixing them or breaking them. Inside the alien ship, the children were placed in a large room with soft walls that glowed with a gentle light. The energy nets disappeared, but new barriers appeared around the room. The barriers looked like glass, but felt warm to the touch. "At least we're all together," Haiyan Wu said, trying to comfort the younger children. Through the transparent walls, they could see the alien world growing larger as the ship traveled through space. It was a dark planet with red clouds swirling around it. Strange structures covered the surface like metal trees growing from the ground. Dexval stood in the ship's command center, reviewing the collection report. 12 young specimens of the species called humans. Initial scans showed they were in good health and displayed above-average intelligence for their age group. The research facility on the homeworld would be pleased with this acquisition. "Commander," his science officer reported, "the specimens appear to be communicating with each other using complex verbal patterns." "Interesting," Dexval replied. "Most young specimens from primitive worlds become silent when removed from their environment." Add this to the behavioral notes. What Dexval didn't know was that the human colony on Kepler 442b was already sending emergency signals to Earth. What he didn't know was that humans had strict laws about protecting their children. What he didn't know was that taking 12 human children would bring the full anger of humanity down on his entire empire. The ship continued its journey to the Vorthic homeworld, carrying 12 brave children who would soon become the center of the largest military response in human history. Park Dong-min woke up to the sound of emergency alarms blaring throughout the mining colony. As the settlement administrator, he had dealt with equipment failures and minor accidents before, but this alarm was different. This was the alarm that meant something had gone very wrong. He rushed to the communication center, still wearing his sleep clothes. The duty officer, Lieutenant Oh Kyung-soo, was frantically working at multiple screens at once. "What's the situation?" Park demanded. "Sir, we lost contact with the school field trip group 40 minutes ago," Oh replied, his voice tight with worry. Mrs. Han's emergency beacon went silent, and the automated distress signal activated. Park felt his blood turn cold. The field trip group included 12 children, including his own nephew Jin-ho. "Send a search team immediately." "Already dispatched, sir." "But there's more." Oh pointed to another screen showing radar data. "We detected 3 unknown ships in the area where the field trip was supposed to be. Large vessels, not from any human fleet. Park stared at the data. In his 5 years as administrator, they had never encountered alien ships near their colony. The mining settlement was too small and too far from major space lanes to attract attention. 20 minutes later, the search team's report came through the radio. Park listened in growing horror as team leader Corporal Yoon described what they found at the old mining site. Mrs. Han is unconscious but alive. No sign of the children anywhere. We found scorch marks from energy weapons and evidence of a landing. The ground shows marks from at least 3 large ships. Park made the hardest decision of his career. He activated the colony's emergency communication array, sending a coded message directly to Earth Defense Command. The message would take 6 hours to reach Earth, but it would bypass all normal channels and go straight to the highest levels of human military command. 6 hours later, Captain Lee Sang-ho was enjoying a quiet morning coffee in his office on the Seoul Defense Station, when his emergency communicator started flashing red. Red meant only one thing: a threat to human civilians that required immediate military response. Lee opened the encrypted message and read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. 12 human children, taken by unknown aliens from a mining colony. No ransom demands. No communication from the kidnappers. The children had simply vanished. Lee's hand was shaking slightly as he forwarded the message to Admiral Kim Yeon-soo. Within 30 minutes, he was standing in the Admiral's secure briefing room, along with the heads of intelligence, special operations, and xenobiology. Admiral Kim was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice could make veteran soldiers stand straighter. "Gentlemen, we have a situation that requires our full attention. 12 human children have been abducted by an unknown alien species." Dr. Choi Min-ji, the chief xenobiologist, pulled up holographic displays showing the evidence from the colony. Based on the energy signatures and ship designs captured by the colony's security cameras, these appeared to be Vorthic vessels. "The Vorthic Empire," explained Intelligence Chief Colonel Beek Tae-hyun. "We've had limited contact with them through galactic trading posts. They're an older spacefaring civilization that considers itself superior to most other species. They have a habit of collecting specimens from worlds they consider primitive." "Specimens?" Lee asked, his voice dangerous. "Living samples for scientific study," Dr. Choi answered quietly. "They usually take adults, but children would be considered more valuable for long-term behavioral research." Admiral Kim stood up slowly. Her face was calm, but everyone in the room could feel the anger radiating from her. "They took our children for experiments." "Admiral," Colonel Beek said carefully, "the Vorthic probably don't understand what they've done. To them, humans are just another species. They likely think this is routine. Then we need to educate them." Admiral Kim replied. She turned to her communications officer. "Send a priority message to Fleet Command. I want every available ship prepared for immediate deployment. Also, activate the Prometheus protocol." The room went silent. The Prometheus protocol was humanity's most classified military plan. It had been developed in secret after first contact with alien civilizations, based on the assumption that humanity might one day need to fight a war against technologically superior enemies. "Admiral," Lee said, "the Prometheus protocol calls for revealing our hidden military capabilities. Once we use those weapons, every species in the galaxy will know what we're capable of." "Good," Admiral Kim said simply. "Captain Lee, I'm putting you in command of the rescue operation. Take the Shadow Fleet, find our children, and bring them home." The Shadow Fleet was humanity's secret weapon. For 50 years, human engineers had been developing stealth technology, advanced weapons, and ships that could move faster than anything else in known space. The galaxy thought humans were a young, peaceful species with basic technology. They were about to learn otherwise. Lee saluted. What are my rules of engagement, Admiral? Bring back our children alive. Everything else is secondary. Kim's voice was steel. If the Vorthik want to treat human children as specimens, they can learn what it feels like to be studied by human military scientists. Dr. Choi raised her hand nervously. Admiral, if we attack the Vorthik directly, it could start a war. They have allies throughout the galaxy. Dr. Choi, Admiral Kim said, looking directly at her. They started this war the moment they touched our children. We're just going to finish it. Within hours, the largest military mobilization in human history began. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and dark nebulae started moving toward Vorthik space. Weapons that had only been tested in secret were loaded onto vessels that officially didn't exist. Back on Kepler 442b, Park Dong-min received a coded message from Earth. It was brief. Help is coming. Maintain communications. Prepare for military support operations. Park didn't understand what military support operations meant, but he felt hope for the first time since the children had been taken. He thought about Jin Ho and the other children, wondering if they were scared, if they were hurt, if they were still alive. Mrs. Han had woken up from the alien weapons effects and was being treated in the colony medical center. She had told Park everything she remembered about the alien soldiers and their ships. Every detail was recorded and transmitted to Earth. They seemed surprised that I tried to protect the children, Mrs. Han said, her voice still weak. Like, they didn't expect that kind of reaction. Park nodded grimly. The aliens had made a serious mistake. If they thought humans wouldn't fight to protect their young Dot in Earth's military command center, final preparations were being made. Admiral Kim stood before a massive display showing the positions of 200 human ships moving through space toward Vorthik territory. The ships moved in complete silence, invisible to most scanning technology. Admiral, reported Communications Officer Major Ru Hee-jin, we are receiving signals from our deep space monitoring stations. Several alien governments are asking about increased human ship movements. Tell them we're conducting routine training exercises, Kim replied. They'll learn the truth soon enough. Captain Lee was aboard his flagship, the stealth cruiser Soul's Vengeance. His crew was the best humanity had to offer. Pilots who could fly through asteroid fields blindfolded, weapons specialists who could hit targets light years away, and engineers who understood alien technology better than the aliens themselves. Captain, his navigator reported, will reach the edge of Vorthik space in 18 hours. Good, Lee said. Signal the fleet. All ships maintain stealth protocols until we locate the children. Once we find them, we show the Vorthik what happens when you threaten human children. The navigator nodded and sent the coded message to the Shadow Fleet. 200 ships, carrying humanity's hidden military, might continue their silent journey through space, moving toward a confrontation that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. On the Vorthik homeworld, Commander Thexfall was reviewing the initial research reports on the human specimens. The children showed remarkable adaptability and intelligence. They had already begun to understand basic Vorthik technology and were communicating in ways that suggested complex social structures. Perhaps we should acquire more specimens from this species, Thexfall suggested to his superior. They show great potential for advanced study. Neither Thexfall nor any other. Vorthak realized that their simple specimen collection had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The research facility on the Vorthik homeworld was a massive structure that stretched deep underground. The human children had been placed in what their captors considered comfortable living quarters on level 7. The room was large, with soft lighting and furniture that adjusted to their size. To the Vorthik, it was a generous accommodation for research subjects. To the children, it was still a prison. Hyan Wu sat on one of the strange chairs that seemed to be made of some kind of living material. It was soft and warm, but it felt wrong under his body. He watched his little sister So Young as she explored the room with Nare, both girls trying to understand how everything worked. The walls change color when you touch them, So Young reported, pressing her palm against the smooth surface. The wall shifted from blue to green where her hand made contact. Jin-ho was more interested in the ceiling. Strange devices hung from above, and he was sure they were watching everything the children did. "Those are cameras," he told the others quietly. "They're studying us like we're animals in a zoo." Nari had discovered something interesting about the door. When she pressed her ear against it, she could hear sounds from the hallway outside. "There are people walking out there," she whispered, "but they don't walk like humans. Their steps sound different." For 3 days, the Vorthic researchers had been observing the children through hidden cameras and sensors. They recorded everything: how the children slept, what they ate, how they communicated with each other. The data was fascinating to the alien scientists. Dr. Kethmer was the lead researcher assigned to the human specimens. She was younger than most Vorthic scientists, and she had joined the research program because she genuinely wanted to understand other species. As she watched the human children through the monitors, she began to feel something she had never experienced before: doubt about their methods. "The subjects show remarkable social cooperation," she reported to her supervisor. "They share food equally, comfort each other when distressed, and the older subjects take care of the younger ones without being instructed to do so." Her supervisor, Dr. Vex Thun, was an older Vorthic who had been studying alien species for over 200 years. "This behavior is common among pack animals," he said dismissively. "Continue the observations. We need more data on their learning capabilities." But Kethmer wasn't convinced that these humans were simple pack animals. She had watched Hyan Wu organize the other children, teaching them games to keep their spirits up and making sure everyone stayed calm. She had seen Jin-ho figure out how to operate some of the room's controls just by watching and experimenting. Most surprising of all, she had observed little Nari copying the sounds of Vorthic speech that came through the walls. On the 4th day, the research team decided to begin more direct studies. They introduced puzzles and simple tools into the children's room to test their intelligence and problem-solving abilities. Hyan Wu immediately understood what was happening. "They want to see how smart we are," he told the others. "Let's show them, but let's also learn about them while we do it." The children approached the alien puzzles like a team. Jin-ho used his technical knowledge to understand the mechanical parts. So Young's quick fingers could manipulate small components that the older children had trouble with. Nari listened carefully to the sounds the devices made, learning the patterns. Hyan Wu coordinated their efforts and made sure they shared information. What amazed Dr. Kethmer was how quickly the humans learned. Most species took weeks to understand. Basic Vorthic technology. These children were figuring out complex systems in hours. "The subjects are solving level 5 puzzles," she reported in disbelief. Most adult specimens from other species never progress beyond level 3. Dr. Vex Thun was more interested in the practical applications. "Excellent. These specimens will provide valuable data for our cognitive enhancement research. Prepare them for the neural scanning procedures." Kethmer felt that strange doubt. Again, neural scanning was invasive and often caused permanent damage to the subjects. "Sir, perhaps we should continue with non-invasive methods for now. They're learning so quickly that—" "Dr. Kethmer," Vex Thun interrupted, "these are specimens, not colleagues. Proceed with the neural scans tomorrow." That night, Kethmer couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the way the human children looked at each other, the way they protected and cared for one another. She had never seen such behavior in any other species they had studied. Unable to rest, she went to the observation room to check on the specimens. What she saw changed everything. Children weren't sleeping. They were gathered in a circle, with Haiyan Wu speaking quietly to the group. Kethmer activated the audio monitors to hear what they were saying. "Tomorrow they're going to try something different," Haiyan Wu was saying. "I saw new equipment being brought to the room next to ours. We need to be ready." "Ready for what?" asked So Young. "To help ourselves," Jin Ho answered. "We can't just wait for rescue. We need to find a way to let people know where we are." Nari spoke up in her small voice. "I think I can make the sounds they make when they talk. I've been listening to them through the walls." Haiyan Wu nodded seriously. "That's good, Nari. If you can copy their language, maybe we can understand their computers better." Dr. Kethner watched in amazement as these young beings planned and strategized like experienced adults. They weren't just intelligent. They were thinking several steps ahead and working together in ways that even adult Vorthik rarely achieved. The next morning, when the research team prepared to take the first child for neural scanning, they found something unexpected. The children had somehow accessed the room's control panel and changed the door locks. The security codes had been modified using a combination of sounds that perfectly mimicked authorized Vorthik voice patterns. "How is this possible?" Dr. Vexthun demanded. Security Chief Thrallman reviewed the recordings from the night before. "The smallest specimen learned to reproduce our vocal frequencies. They used those sounds to trick the voice recognition system. Impossible. Our vocal patterns are too complex for primitive species to duplicate." But the evidence was right in front of them. Little Nari had spent days listening to Vorthik speech and had somehow learned to copy it perfectly. The children had used this ability to access the facility's computer system. Dr. Kethmer stepped forward. "Sir, I recommend we reconsider the neural scanning procedures. These subjects are far more advanced than we initially believed." "Nonsense," Vexthun snapped. "Override the locks and proceed with the tests." But when security tried to override the locks, they discovered that the children had done something even more remarkable. Jinho had figured out how to access the facility's communication system. Using Nari's vocal mimicry, they had sent a message. Through the Vorthik communication network. The message was simple and brief. "We are alive. We are together. Come find us." The message had been transmitted on emergency frequencies and had already reached several Vorthik military installations. More importantly, it had been intercepted by deep space monitoring stations that belonged to other species, including the humans. "Find out where that message went," Vexthun ordered, "and increase security on the specimens immediately." But it was too late. The message had already traveled across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Within hours, it would reach human space and confirm what Captain Lei's rescue fleet already suspected. The children were alive. They were together, and they were on the Vorthik homeworld. Dr. Kethmer looked at the children through the monitors. As additional security measures were put in place around their room, they sat calmly together, not celebrating their success, but preparing for whatever would come next. These weren't specimens, she realized. These were remarkable beings who deserved better than what her people were planning to do to them. For the first time in her career, Dr. Kethmer began to question everything she had been taught about lesser species. If these human children could outsmart Vorthik security systems and show such courage in the face of danger, what did that say about their entire species? The children had bought themselves time and sent word to their people. Now they could only wait and hope that help would come before the Vorthik decided to proceed with more invasive research. But they weren't waiting passively. They were learning, planning, and preparing for whatever came next. High above the planet, Captain Lei's stealth fleet was already moving into position around the Vorthik homeworld. The children's message had given the human military exactly what they needed. Confirmation of the location and proof that all 12 children were alive. The rescue was about to begin, and the Vorthic Empire was about to learn why taking human children was the worst mistake they had ever made. Captain Lee Sang-ho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, watching the Vorthic homeworld grow larger on the main screen. Around his ship, 200 human vessels moved through space like deadly shadows. The Vorthic had no idea they were coming. "Captain," reported Navigation Officer Lieutenant Park Min-jun, "we're in position. All fleet units are ready for the rescue operation." Lee nodded grimly. For the past 2 days, the Shadow Fleet had been moving into position around the Vorthic system. Their stealth technology was so advanced that even the Vorthic's best sensors couldn't detect them. Humanity had been preparing for this kind of operation for 50 years. "Communications, patch me through to Admiral Kim," Lee ordered. Admiral Kim's face appeared on the screen from her command ship, the battlecruiser Incheon's Fury. Behind her, Lee could see the massive weapon systems that the galaxy had never seen before. "Status report, Captain," Kim said. "All units in position, Admiral. We've located the research facility where the children are being held. It's heavily defended, but nothing we can't handle." "What about civilian casualties?" "The facility is isolated from the main Vorthic cities. We can extract the children with minimal collateral damage." Admiral Kim was quiet for a moment. "Captain, I want you to understand something. This operation isn't just about rescuing 12 children. It's about sending a message to every species in the galaxy. Humans protect their own, and the cost of harming our people is higher than anyone can imagine." Lee understood. "Yes, Admiral. We'll make sure the message is received." Inside the research facility, Dr. Kethmer was having the worst day of her career. The human children had somehow gained access to more of the facility's systems. They had figured out how to control the lighting, the temperature, and even some of the security cameras. "They're not specimens," she tried to explain to Dr. Vex Thune for the 3rd time that morning. "They're a highly intelligent species that we've seriously underestimated." Vex Thune was furious. "They're clever animals, nothing more. Increase the security protocols and begin the neural scans immediately." "Sir, if we proceed with invasive procedures, we could cause permanent damage to beings that are clearly sentient, and—" "Enough!" Vex Thune slammed his hand on his desk. "Dr. Kethmer, you are allowing these specimens to cloud your scientific judgment. Either proceed with the research as planned, or I will find someone who will." Kethmer looked at the monitor showing the human children. They were sitting together calmly, but she could see the intelligence in their eyes. They knew something was about to happen. In their holding room, Haiyan Wu was teaching the younger children a simple card game using pieces of food as cards. It looked like innocent play to the cameras, but actually he was giving them instructions for what to do when the rescue came. "Remember," he said quietly, "when the red lights start flashing, we all move to the corner by the door. Stay low and stay together." "How do you know rescue is coming?" So Young asked. Jinho answered for his friend. "Because we're human, and humans never leave their people behind." Nari had been listening to the walls again. "I hear new sounds outside," she whispered. Different machines, and the grown-ups sound worried. What Nari was hearing was the facility's defense systems powering up. Military Commander Vex Throne had received reports of unusual energy readings on the edge of the system, and he was taking no chances. "All defensive platforms to full alert," Vex Throne ordered from the facility's command center. "Deploy sensor nets and begin deep space scanning procedures." But the Vorthic scanners found nothing. The human stealth technology was 50 years ahead of anything the aliens had ever encountered. The Shadow Fleet remained invisible, moving closer to their target. Colonel Beak Tae Hyan led the ground assault team aboard the stealth transport ship Guangzhou's Thunder. His soldiers were the best humanity had to offer, men and women who had trained their entire lives for operations like this. They wore armor that could adapt to any environment and carried weapons that could punch through any known defense. Remember, Beak told his team, our primary objective is the children. Everything else is secondary. We go in fast, we get them out, and we show these aliens what happens when you mess with human kids. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The fleet would disable the facility's defenses while Beak's team went in to extract the children. At the same time, Admiral Kim would reveal the full strength of human military capability to the entire Vorthic government dot at exactly 1400 hours local time. The attack began. The first thing the Vorthic noticed was that their defense platforms simply stopped working. Advanced human cyber warfare systems had taken control of the alien computers in seconds. Weapons that should have been firing at incoming threats instead powered down and went silent. What's happening to our systems? Commander Vexthrone demanded. His technicians worked frantically at their controls. Sir, we've lost contact with all defensive platforms. Something is overriding our command protocols. Then the human ships decloaked. 200 vessels appeared around the Vorthic homeworld as if they had materialized from nothing. The ships were sleek and deadly, with weapon systems that the Vorthic had never seen before. They moved with precision. That suggested computer-assisted coordination beyond anything in Vorthic technology. Impossible, Vexthrone whispered. Where did they come from? Admiral Kim's voice came through every communication system on the planet, speaking in perfect Vorthic language. This is Admiral Kim Yan-Su of the Human Defense Force. You have taken 12 human children for your research programs. We want them back, now. The transmission was calm and professional, but every Vorthic who heard it felt a chill of fear. The humans had found them, surrounded their homeworld, and disabled their defenses without firing a single shot. Research facility. Alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors, and Vorthic personnel ran in confusion as their security systems failed one by one. Dr. Kethmer made her decision. She ran to the children's holding room and used her access codes to open the door. Come with me, she told the surprised children. I'm getting you out of here. Hang and Wu looked at her suspiciously. Why are you helping us? Because you're not specimens, Kethmer said simply. You're people, and people don't deserve to be treated like this. The children followed her through corridors, filled with panicking Vorthic scientists and security personnel. Kethmer led them toward the facility's emergency exit, but they were stopped by Dr. Vexthun and a squad of armed guards. Dr. Kethmer, step away from the specimens immediately, Vexthun ordered. No, Kethmer said firmly. I won't let you hurt them. That's when Colonel Beak and his assault team came through the wall. The human soldiers had used molecular disruptors to walk through the facility's walls like they weren't there. Their armor made them look like metal giants, and their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. Get down. Beak shouted in Korean. The children immediately dropped to the floor, proving they had understood exactly what he said. The Vorthic guards raised their weapons, but the human soldiers were faster. Energy beams flashed through the corridor, but the humans' weapons were set to stun, not kill Dot in seconds. The Vorthic guards were unconscious on the floor. Dr. Vexthun stared in shock at the human soldiers who had appeared from nowhere and defeated his security team without breaking a sweat. Are you the human children from Kepler 442b? Colonel Beak asked, removing his helmet to show his face. Yes, sir, Haiyan Wu answered, standing up and helping the younger children to their feet. We're all here, all 12 of us. Beak smiled with relief. Then let's go home. As the rescue team escorted the children toward their extraction point, Dr. Kethmer stayed behind. She looked at Dr. Vexthun, who was still staring in disbelief. "They came for their children," she said quietly. "All of this military power, all of these ships, just to rescue 12 young ones. What kind of species does that?" Above the planet, Admiral Kim was broadcasting a message to the entire Vorthic government. "Your research facility has been secured. Your children have been returned to us unharmed. Consider this a demonstration of human military capability. We suggest you reconsider your policies regarding specimen collection." The Vorthak leadership was in complete shock. They had never seen technology this advanced, coordination this precise, or military force this overwhelming. The humans had appeared from nowhere, disabled their defenses, rescued their people, and done it all without causing a single Vorthic casualty. Commander Vexthrone finally understood what his empire had done. They hadn't captured specimens from a primitive species. They had kidnapped the children of apex predators. The rescue was complete, but the revelation was just beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not the young, peaceful species they had appeared to be. They were something much more dangerous, a species that would cross the entire galaxy and deploy overwhelming military force just to protect their children, and every alien civilization was taking notes. The human transport ship felt like paradise to the 12 children after their days in the Vorthic research facility. Real beds, food that tasted like home, and most importantly, people who spoke their language and understood their culture. Hyun Woo sat with his little sister So Young in the ship's medical bay. Dr. Yang Hee-jin, the fleet's chief medical officer, was giving them final health checks before they returned to their families. "You're all remarkably healthy," Dr. Yang told them. "The Vorthic didn't hurt you physically, but I want to make sure there are no hidden effects from their technology." "They weren't trying to hurt us," Hyun-woo explained. "They just didn't understand that we were people like them. They thought we were animals." Dr. Yang paused in her examination. This 12-year-old boy was speaking with the wisdom of someone much older. "What made you realize that?" "The way they looked at us," So Young answered for her brother. "Like we were interesting bugs." In another part of the ship, Jin Ho was talking with Colonel Beak about the Vorthic technology they had encountered. The 14-year-old's technical knowledge impressed the military officer. "You figured out their voice recognition system in just a few days?" Beak asked. Jin Ho nodded. "Nari learned to copy their sounds, and I watched how they operated their controls. It wasn't that hard once we understood the patterns." "Jin Ho," Beak said seriously, "when you get home, I want you to consider applying for our engineering program. We could use people with your talents." Meanwhile, little Nari was amazing the ship's linguist, Professor Lee Yuna, with her ability to reproduce Vorthic speech patterns. "How did you learn to make those sounds so quickly?" Professor Lee asked. "Na-R, I thought about it seriously. I listen a lot. People make sounds that mean things, and if you listen long enough, you can learn to make the same sounds." Professor Lee was astounded. This 6-year-old had accomplished something that usually took trained linguists months to achieve. On the command deck, Captain Lee was receiving reports from Admiral Kim about the broader situation. The rescue had been successful, but it had created shockwaves throughout the galaxy. "Captain," Admiral Kim said over the communication link, "every major alien government is demanding explanations. They want to know where our fleet came from and why we kept our military capabilities secret." "What are you telling them, Admiral? The truth. We've been preparing for the day when someone would threaten human civilians. Today was that day." The Vorthic government had formally surrendered within hours of the human fleet's appearance. Their military leaders had quickly realized that fighting humanity would be suicide. The humans had demonstrated technology that was decades ahead of anything the Vorthic possessed. Emperor Krexthul himself had sent a personal apology message to Admiral Kim. "We did not understand the nature of your species," the message said. "We thought the humans were a young race with primitive technology. We now realize we were tragically mistaken." But the apology was too little, too late. Word of the incident had spread throughout the galaxy faster than light-speed communication could carry it. The story was simple and terrifying. Humanity had hidden advanced military technology for decades, and they would deploy all of it to protect a handful of their children. Ambassador Ru Hei-jin was in the emergency session of the Galactic Council, fielding questions from dozens of alien species about humanity's hidden fleet. "Ambassador Ru," demanded the Xanthari representative, "how long has humanity possessed this level of military technology?" "Since we first made contact with galactic civilization," Ru answered honestly. "We believed it was wise to keep some capabilities in reserve." "Some capabilities?" the Altarian counselor asked in disbelief. "You revealed 200 advanced warships that appeared from nowhere. And that's just what we're willing to show you," Ru replied calmly. The galactic representatives fell silent. If the humans were willing to reveal this much military power just to rescue children, what were they hiding for more serious threats? On the Vorthic homeworld, Dr. Kethmer was facing her own reckoning. She had been called before the Imperial Science Council to explain her actions during the human rescue. "You aided the escape of valuable research specimens," accused Chief Scientist Morthal. "I helped free 12 intelligent beings who were being held against their will," Kethmer replied firmly. "And if we had continued with our planned research, we would have committed acts that the humans would consider unforgivable." "The humans?" Morthal scoffed. "What does it matter what primitives think?" Kethmer looked at her superior with pity. "Primitives don't build invisible fleets that can disable our entire defense network in minutes. Primitives don't teach their children to outsmart our security systems. And primitives certainly don't cross the galaxy to rescue 12 young ones, while showing restraint that prevented any Vorthic casualties." The Science Council was quiet. They had all seen the reports. The humans could have destroyed the research facility, could have bombarded the planet, could have killed thousands of Vorthic. Instead, they had precisely extracted their children and left, demonstrating a level of military discipline that impressed even Vorthic generals. Back on the human fleet, the children were finally heading home. They gathered in the ship's observation deck to watch the stars as they traveled through hyperspace. "Do you think they'll treat other species better now?" So Young asked. Hyan-Wu considered the question. "I think they'll be more careful about who they try to capture, and maybe they'll start thinking about whether other species are really people like them." Jingho was looking at technical displays showing the ship's advanced systems. "I want to learn how to build ships like this," he said, "so that if anyone ever tries to take human children again, we'll be ready." Nari was practicing the new sounds she had learned from the ship's crew. "I want to learn more languages," she announced. "If we can talk to other people, maybe they won't be scared of us." Dr. Yang had been listening to their conversation. These children had been through a traumatic experience, but they were already thinking about the future and how to make it better. It was exactly the kind of resilience that made humanity formidable. 3 days later, the children were reunited with their families on Kepler 442b. The entire colony gathered to welcome them home. There were tears, celebrations, and countless hugs as parents held their children again. Park Dong-min, the colony administrator, made a speech to the gathered families. "These 12 young people have shown the galaxy what human children are capable of. They stayed brave, they worked together, and they helped their own rescue by outsmarting alien technology. They represent the best of what humanity can be." Mrs. Han, fully recovered from her ordeal, hugged each of the children individually. "You were all so brave," she told them. "I'm proud of every one of you." But the real changes were happening throughout the galaxy. The demonstration of human military capability had shifted the balance of power in ways that would take years to fully understand. The Vorthok Empire formally banned all specimen collection programs and established new protocols for dealing with species they considered primitive. Other governments began reviewing their own policies toward younger civilizations. More importantly, dozens of species that had been victims of Vorthok specimen collection began demanding the return of their own people. The humans had shown that it was possible to stand up to the Vorthok Empire and win. Ambassador Ru found himself fielding requests for military protection from smaller species throughout the galaxy. "Ambassador," asked the representative from New Kepler, "would humanity consider extending protection to other species whose children might be threatened?" "We will consider any reasonable request for aid," Ru replied. "Humanity believes that all sentient beings have the right to protect their young." 6 months later, the Galactic Protection Accord was signed by 47 species. The agreement established that any government or organization that harmed the children of member species would face immediate military response from the entire alliance. Humanity found itself at the center of the largest mutual defense pact in galactic history, all because 12 children had been brave enough to help themselves and because the human species had been willing to deploy overwhelming force to bring them home. The children themselves became symbols of human courage and intelligence. Hai and Wu, So Young, Jinho, Nari, and their 8 companions were invited to speak at schools throughout human space, telling their story and inspiring other young people. The most important thing, Hai and Wu always said at the end of his talks, is that we never gave up hope. We knew our people would come for us, and they did. That's what families do for each other. And throughout the galaxy, alien parents looked at their own children and thought about the humans who had crossed space and revealed military secrets just to rescue 12 young ones. They began to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their advanced technology or their hidden fleet's dot. It was their absolute unwillingness to abandon their own. The Vorthok had learned this lesson the hard way, and they made sure to teach it to every other species they encountered. Never, under any circumstances, threaten human children. The price of that mistake was higher than any civilization could afford to pay dot as the galaxy settled into its new reality. One truth became clear.